Hi, everybody. Welcome to Smith Gallery. This is Amanda, and that's Kevin. And the other person on the screen is Joe Fields. What we're going to do today is look at some of Joe's work. She is the first person in our awards collective. The awards collective is a result of the juror exhibitions, and the juror picks a juror's award. And that's where this comes from. So Joe won the Jurors Award for Botanical, which was back last year. And Wendi Schneider was the juror for that. And so we're going to go through some of Joe's work. It's the title of this particular body of her work is called Notes from the Universe. And
Joe, do you mind if I read your bio? Jo Fields is a fine art photographer based in Nashville, Tennessee. Although her career was in healthcare information systems, Jo's first love was the expressive interpretation of music as a flutist. Photography has gradually taken over as the primary passion with the colors, shapes, and details in the music of nature. Photography became a cathartic and therapeutic personal journey that is a fusion of emotional, technical, and creative processes. Her work revolves around themes of finding beauty in the ordinary and highlighting the conflicts and interdependence of humanity and nature. This series has received honorable mentions in the Julia Margaret Cameron Awards and was selected as a Photolucida Critical Mass 2023 finalist. And it is really beautiful work.
And congratulations on all that. That's
absolutely.
That's great. Well deserved.
It's been pretty incredible this year.
Good.
In a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been working hard at this for a long time.
I have.
Yeah.
This series was an interesting. I'll kind of give a little background into it. I had been, taking pictures for a long time and gradually trying to keep working on things and improving and quote unquote finding my voice, I think is what they call it. And I felt like I was getting there, but I couldn't quite find that thread through the work that I was looking for. So I took a portfolio development workshop with Susan Bernstein. Have to give her a plug because I don't think I would have this series if it wasn't for her. But we worked through a lot of different images that I had, and she helped me shape it and, find what that thread was. And it was one of those where I knew I'd been going out and doing photography because it helped me feel better. I'll read in my artist statement, but I knew it improved my mental, state. I felt better after I did it. And so, but I didn't know that grief was the underlying reason that I was doing all this. And so again, that helped bring all that together. And I can read my artist statement now, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. My childhood was filled with lessons about nature, delivered aptly by my parents. The natural world became a foundational source of discovery, connection, and solace. When my mother passed away suddenly, followed by the decline and death of my father, walks in nature became a way to process the long-term grief of their loss. The grief was renewed by the massive loss of life during the pandemic, and these walks became a refuge to reconnect with nature in an intimate and mindful way. I feel that preordained scenes present themselves as a means to shed light on greater teachings of life, much like my original lessons in nature. These visual notes from the universe represent how the fragility of life is both connected and ephemeral.
Very nice.
Yeah, very nice. Beautiful.
That explains a lot, actually. Well, I'll tell you what, I think we'd like to do a screen share now and bring up your images, and then I have a couple of observations. Let's see.
Okay. I'm looking forward to them.
Good. We've talked to you, quite a few times before, and the music always has been something that you brought up in conversations about your work. So, this is a little observation that I had looking at your work a little while ago, and your photography is somewhat spare in content. Could this have something to do with your years as a musician, your connection to music? For example, this almost looks like musical notes right here.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody told me they look like bugs.
Bugs.
So I've heard a lot of different, but that's a very interesting observation. Yeah, I can see that.
So do you feel that connection, or is that just coming from me, or is that something that you think is real?
I think, I think who we are as our underpinnings influence our photography. Yeah. But I had never really thought that. I have one that is about music in a way. It's called Musica Nocturna, and it's about the moonflower vine, and I named them musical terminology because when I was a kid, I thought Italian was magic, And I was going to just mention that image is called Notes to the Universe. I came across that tree, and someone had tied these little tags on there, and they were just fluttering in the breeze. And I, looked to see what it was about, and they had written on there, "Thank you for being so ... And this was in the middle of the pandemic. And I just thought, what a beautiful kind of gratitude practice. And then to kind of leave it there for others to find was really special. Really liked that.
Absolutely.
And so it kind of inspired the whole actual idea of the notes to the universe. So.
And why did you choose to present your work in black and white?
I tend to shoot in black and white, even though I'm a digital shooter. I think I kind of tend to photograph shapes, and I abstract things more, I think. It's just what speaks to me, and these just felt like they needed to be black and white. Sometimes I'll shoot and they tell me they need to be in color. I just kind of, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do like black and white a lot.
Well, these are beautiful in black and white.
I was going for kind of that platinum palladium look, even though I don't know how to do that. I love that. I feel like it's a timeless look to it.
Right. Tell us about this image.
This was when I was walking again in the woods, and I saw this owl on a branch, and I kept walking closer, taking pictures of it, and all of a sudden it took off. And at first I didn't like this image because I thought, I didn't really quite get it. It's not completely, I wanted it frozen sharp when I first took the picture. And then as I looked at it more and processed it, I realized I loved that feeling of motion that the blur, especially up in the wings, gave to it. And I loved how sharp the claws were.
Yeah.
Right. Wonderful. You know that the owl in a lot of Native American mythology, specifically in the Kiowa religion, I believe, is associated with death.
No, I didn't know that. You're just full of fun facts.
Yes, you are.
I can't help it.
This one is called Forest Evolving. And again, I came across it on a walk. And it just really struck me how the spires sort of looked. It were trees in the last part of their life, so to speak, and yet there was this one small tree growing there. And I just loved the way it was kind of spreading its branches, and then all the rest of the trees seemed to be sort of, protecting them or something. And just kind of was a statement of all the different stages of life, so to speak.
Yeah, it's what's the word? Anthropomorphic. They have it's like they're three friends standing there in some type of relationship to each other.
So are all these walks in the same place, or are you walking in different places?
Most of them are. There's a park not even a mile away from my house that's hundreds of acres of trails, and that's where I kind of started going in the around 2015, I decided I needed to start going there more, and just kept finding these really wonderful things. So,
yeah.
Very nice.
Speaking of anthropomorphic, it was funny. One again, this was in Warner Park, and I was initially attracted to the leaves and the way the light was coming through the leaves, and they were fluttering. And then I got home and started processing this, and I thought, well, Picasso would really like this tree, because you can see kind of, and it reminded me of the Ents, from Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just kind of like that feel to it, that it was,
yeah.
Eye and a mouth.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah. This is one of my favorite images of yours. I love this one.
Thank you. This one is one of the older ones and was one of my favorites. This little feather was like not even half an inch big. And it was one of those that, again, by getting kind of down low, I could get some of the hills in the park in the background. And just loved the combination of the dried, this was kind of taken in winter, of the dried branches of this, plant. And then the contrast with the brightness of the feather and how small it was. And yet it had hundreds of, of little tiny, beads of water on it. And I just thought that was just, again, along the theme of ephemeral, so to speak.
Right. Beautiful.
This one I renamed recently. It's called Wild Onions. And it was one of those, it was a foggy day in the park, and I was walking along, and I saw these shapes, and it reminded me of like a Chihuly glass sculpture or something. Right. And I loved, again, the way the water beat it up in a line along it and kind of put an edge to the shapes.
Yeah, it's very sculptural. Really, really nice.
This one was taken not in Warner Park, but in another park, Centennial Park in Nashville. And we were on a photo walk, and it was the supermoon. And I was walking along, and all of a sudden, the trees I was looking at aligned with the moon and made it look like it had hands around it, so to speak. And I call this one Cradled. I just thought that was a beautiful, the silhouette against the moon was really pretty.
Yeah, it's also not it's not in our face. I mean, we have to kind of discover what we're looking at, which I also really like that.
This one, we're back to Warner Park, and this one was during the pandemic. This is a trillium, and it's one of my favorite wildflowers. And we were in that space of the early spring of the pandemic, of where it just felt like we didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow, and I call this one Waiting to Bloom. Like we were all waiting, to see if we would bloom.
Right. Wow.
I just love the light on it.
Absolutely.
And this is Warner Park also, and during the pandemic, and I was walking along, and all of a sudden there opened in the brush there. They have lots of meadows where they just leave it natural. And I just loved the way the spider web was caught between the flowers, and that you could see on back, and there were all these other little random webs back there. And it just felt, I don't know, it just felt like, well, this is perfect. And yet it's not perfect,
So do any of these relate back to your statement about concerning grief?
Well, again, this is where I think it depends. It's your perspective when you take something is how brief, often that spider webs are there. And moments in time like this and finding them are what part of the things that help me process that grief. I guess I'll call it that.
Right, right.
This one is called Family Portrait. And these mushrooms grow up in the mulch overnight, and they're not even an inch tall. And there was just a bunch of them one morning, and I just liked the way these were shaped and thought it reminded me of Fantasia, that little dance of the mushrooms, you know.
Yeah.
And just liked how they were arranged. And again, I kept going on my walk, and I came back thinking, well, I'll look for them and see if there's any more, you know, that have come up or whatever. And they were all gone. And I researched them, and these kind of mushrooms grow up overnight, and when the sun hits them, they kind of evaporate and they're just gone. And so, you know, just was another, again, ephemeral reference.
Wow.
Yeah, after reading your statement and going through the images earlier, this one in particular has a kind of a winsome, a little bit of a melancholic feel to me. I think to me it's that relationship between those two larger mushrooms.
I loved how they were kind of leaning on each other, and yeah. I think anthropomorphic is a good. I do tend to, you know, read into plant life more than is there, and I perceive that, you know, and that's where I feel like I'm supposed to learn something, you know, from finding these things.
Well, here's something else I thought when I was looking at the work earlier, because, you know, we've all experienced grief, and you know, grief has a tendency, at least for me, you know, you become kind of electric. You become more alive. I don't know how that all works, but your emotions are, you know, all our nerve endings are tingling, and you're on edge, and everything seems to be bigger and stronger and brighter, and it just, I don't know why that is, but that's just the way it's always affected me. But yet, in your response to that, there's a note that I made. Grief around us tends to magnify and electrify. Your response through your imagery appears to be more reflective, universal, poetic, musical. Also the fact that you're shooting small. In other words, you know, you're literally down on the ground here, right?
Yeah.
So you're bringing everything we're made closer to all this imagery. Does any of that sound?
Yes, very much so. I think grief makes you, as you work through all the different feelings, makes you kind of value what you have. Does that make sense too?
Yeah.
You're thinking about the loss, and then you see these things, and but I've got this, and this is beautiful, and it's teaching me, you know, to.
Right. Yeah. You're really
sort of
nice image.
Yeah.
Thank you. This one was just, I was photographing the tree, trying to catch some birds, doing some, you know, motion, and it just felt like that moment of freedom and release or something. And just loved all the different, you know, shapes, and that I was able to get some detail in the wings. I love that. I love bird wings.
So how much post-processing are you doing on these images?
It varies, but generally I'll, you know, convert them from raw to, you know, Photoshop file. And then I like using textures with them. I think it helps shape the light, and it gives it a little more, you know, again, I'm kind of looking for that timeless kind of feel. A little more, less reality, a little bit more dreamy, maybe. I don't know. I use baby lenses sometimes, and macro is a lot of these. And I just love that softness that the images get from that. But then the sharpness also that you can get.
And it gives them that pictorialist look, which I really like. And then you really do a nice job of vignetting. I mean, that makes a big difference too.
Yeah, again, that's usually the texture that kind of does that. And that's how I choose them, of where it puts the light, the light part of the vignette as opposed to the dark. Right. I probably blurred this one a little bit because I couldn't have gotten all that kind of sharpness.
Good job.
So I probably put a blur on it. And this one actually is probably about the oldest image in the series, and this was taken in the Smoky Mountains. It's Cade's Cove, and it was just one of those moments where you just felt like so many different timelines aligned. At first, I was just trying to get the mist and because the fog in Cade's Cove is beautiful. And I loved that leading line of that animal trail. And then these people started walking in, and I'm going, darn, there's people, And then I realized, no, there's people. They got out to a certain point, and I realized, I wondered how many people had gone off into the mountains, as far back as the, Native Americans and everything, of how many times had that been repeated and in this same situation. And that just made it feel, more important.
Absolutely. They're traveling, or they appear to be traveling. Yeah.
Yeah, they had backpacks, and they were kind of jostling each other. They were having a good time. It was fun.
Wow.
Well, unfortunately, I think that's our last one.
Yes. Yeah, I felt like this series, it was important to have those anchor images that I felt like brought all of them together and gave them sense somehow. I don't know exactly,
So are you referring to the first and the last?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like those were the ones that, if I put this series in some shape, form, or fashion, it's actually about 25 images, because it was funny. I just wanted to make myself a little book. Is what I wanted to do. And
we had a little snafu the other day when we were recording this. And so we're trying to pick up where we left off here with Jo Fields, talking to her about her work. And Amanda, would you introduce the entire project again? I'm old and my brain doesn't work real good.
Well, Jo received the Jurors Award for botanical, and as part of that, she got to do a solo exhibit with the gallery, and it's all online. So that's what this is. That's what this presentation is. We showed all our images, and maybe we want to scroll through them again since we can remember. And okay, so let's do a screen share. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. You can just scroll through, I think.
Yeah.
I think there's what, 12? Is that right, Jo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's called Notes from the Universe.
I think that's the last one.
And this is about the time the internet went out.
It went out on its last time.
I hope we can get past the last image this time.
Well, I'm going to stop the share.
And I think we were talking about there were 25 images in this whole series. And
and the creation of that through the portfolio review process that I did really helped me kind of get some closure to that work and that whole period of my life, basically, where, you know, it was grief after grief for a while. And again, helping how, you know, nature is very healing, I think. And I think photography is also, you know, going out and noticing and trying to identify things, you know, that just present themselves, so to speak, is helpful for overcoming that. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, great. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for putting up with us.
It's not y'all, it's technology. You know, you can't control that. I wanted to, you know, first of all, say thank you also to Wendi Schneider for giving me the Juror Award. She's just always so supportive of so many artists, and she's just wonderful. And speaking of that, y'all are always so supportive of even exponentially more artists by your gallery, and I've really appreciated our relationship over the years since I think it was about, I looked back and it's about 2018 when I started getting in some exhibits there, and I've been in over 20. Wow. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool, you know, and I've been to 2 or 3 workshops there. I'm pretty sure it was 3 because I did 2 in one weekend, and then I did another time where I came. And it was the last thing I did before the pandemic too. It was, was the workshop. Yeah. And so just again, all the things, how y'all have reinvented yourselves over, you know, time and everything, and all the different things you do, you know, for the gallery and for, you know, other artists and for yourselves. I think you've done some great stuff as far as getting all the, you know, I've been seeing all the exhibits that y'all are in, and it's wonderful. I just think it's great how you're growing and changing to meet the times, you know. And so I just think that's wonderful.
Well, thank you very much.
And I appreciate this opportunity to have a solo exhibit. So that's really awesome.
Well, we greatly appreciate your support of the gallery.
Yeah.
So when were we all in New Orleans to get? Was it New Orleans? No, it was Georgia.
Georgia. Yeah, it was Georgia. Slow Exposures. Yeah. It was the year y'all did
our pop-up.
The Hive. Didn't you call yourself the Hive?
That's
with
right.
Vicky and Sandy. I think it's been it's been a good while. It was before the pandemic, obviously. It was like 2019 probably.
That's right.
As 2020 they didn't have Slow, and then they had it 2021. So it must have been 2019.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, that was fun. Wendi was there too. We all had fun.
Yes, she was.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Jo. We greatly appreciate it.
Very much.
Well, thank you. I again love you guys. I think you're great, and really appreciate the you know, just the relationship we've had over the years, and appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Okay. Always great talking to you.
All right.
Okay.
Well, we were able to wrap that up real quickly. Thank you. Talk to y'all later.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.